Hi there. In the last lecture, we covered how to link multiple categories to a single blog post. In this lecture, what we're going to do is look at how to add images to our blog posts. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go into our blog's model and we need to add a new field to our posts, to our post class. Sorry, our blog application and our post model slash class. And I'm going to call this attribute image. That makes sense. And then I'm going to create this as a file field. Now, what a file field is basically in the database gets saved as a text field, but or a varchar. But in terms of how Django reads it, it can take in the value of a file field in the admin area when it is uploaded. So there are other libraries that you can use. Sorry, this is file field. There are other libraries that you can use to to upload images to Django. The most common one is known as Pillow, which is Pillow. And Pillow is basically an extension of the file field with a little bit of validation on it to make sure that it is in fact an image field. We aren't going to go into that depth with our file field because to be honest, nobody's really going to upload something that isn't an image. And just for the sake of this example, we just want to keep it as simple as possible. So again, this file field is going to need some attributes. So the first attribute that I'm going to do is blank equals to true, and that's just going to allow us to have the functionality so that it doesn't have to, as we discussed before, it doesn't have to have an image. So this value can be null or can be blank. And then the second attribute that I want to add is one that is specific to the file field, and that is the upload to parameter. And what that'll do is that'll tell Django where to upload our files to. So I'm going to say that's upload underscore to equals, and then I'm going to pass in a parameter here. So usually you would pass something like media or something like that. I'm just going to use images for the sake of this example. So yeah, let's just save that. And now obviously we need to run a migration to add this to our model in the database. So I'm just going to go to and it's saying here image name model is not defined. Let's see what that means. Models, that's what we need to change. And there we go, our server is running. Cool, so now we can cancel it and we can run our make migration. So we're going to run Python manage.py make migrations. And if you've been following along with us, you should be now getting the hang of how to create migrations. And now we pass in the application, which is blog. Okay, system, check, identified some warnings, blog post, null has no, okay, this is the error that we got earlier, but it has successfully created our post image migration, and now all we need to do is run that migration. So I'll manage that py, and then migrate, and then the application is blog. Fantastic, and now our blog has successfully been migrated. Cool, or our image field has successfully been added to the model of our blog. So now, if we go to the admin area of our site and we go into one of our posts, oopsie daisy, let's first run our server, run server, and let's run this. Cool, and now what we're going to do is just, what you can see now is we've got our new image field added, and we can just select choose image. Now I've got two images here, one for storm clouds, which I thought related to weather, and one called news, which related to news. So let's just click on storm clouds. It's a really big image, so I'm not expecting this to look very nice on the front end. Let's choose that, and let's just go save. Great, and that was for I think that was for our Hello World post. No, it wasn't. It was maybe for the Lorem Ipsum post. Nope, not giving us anything. Let's try that again. Follow Ipsum, select, choose storm clouds, and save. Ipsum was successfully saved. There we go. And now we have storm clouds attached to this as an image. Cool. So now there's no way for us to see this on the front end. And one of the big issues that we're having is that we don't have a root connected to the image. So if we go to our front end and if we look at this root here, it's currently at /images / storm clouds, etc., etc. So if we had to go / images here, there'd be no root to call that. So it would give us a root error, as you can see. So what we need to do is we actually need to create a root for this for specifically for images. So the way that we do that, if we go back to our code, and now you'll actually notice that we have our storm cloud JPEG that's been added to in the images folder within our application's root, or in our project's root, so that's great. So now what we need to do is we need to open up our URLs file. So that's in our main application under urls.py. And we need to add an additional URL to this to run a regular expression that matches images. So I'm just going to run a new one, and this we can actually just copy the one from above because most of it is going to stay the same. Oopsie, we don't want to format that. Cool, and this is going to be / images because we're looking for it in the images folder. And then I'm just going to say path here because this is just going to be the path to the file. And then these last two parameters are slightly different in the way that they function. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to find a way to link to our project directory, because up to this point we've just been linking to views and things like that, but we haven't actually been linking to our project directory where these images are sitting. So what we need to do is we somehow need to find a way to link the absolute path from our server's root to our images folder, with minus the Django configuration. So the way that we will need to do that is we'll actually need to go into our settings.py file, and in here you'll see a base dir, or the base directory, and this, as it says here, builds paths inside the project like this, and really what it does is it just uses some of Django's core functionality to build the absolute path to our project folder, as you can see, abs path. So we can actually use this base directory if we wanted to, which is really great. So what the first thing we need to do to use this base directory, so the assumption will be we'll go base directory / images to find that the absolute path, is we need to import our base directory into our URLs file. So the way that we do that is we actually have to call a special Django library, the same way that these are two special Django libraries, and it actually has to import our settings.py file, and then all the variables attached to it, because as you can see, this is really just a variable declaration here. So, or I mean, what we could really do as well is we could import OS and then redeclare this whole variable, but that seems a bit redundant, and we may want to use it in other places in the site as well. So again, we say from, and then this is a Django config library as well, so similar to that. So we say django.conf, and it's not within the URLs library though, so we're just going to get Django conf and then import, and then we're going to import our settings library, and this will now give us access to all of our variables defined in our settings.py file. Okay, cool, and then we just need to import one more file from Django, which is Django's static content file. And basically what this file does is this is just going to tell Django that we want to serve a static content in the root of our folder, and we don't want to serve dynamic content such as a view or an HTML document that's gone through Django's templating engine process or anything like that. We just want to serve the file. So that's a Django static library to tell it to do that. So this is going to be from Django.views. Tell it's a static view, and then we're going to import static. And again, there are multiple places within the site where we may want to use the keyword static. So I'm just going to import this as, let's just say Django static maybe. Cool. And now we know to use that this is Django static. And then what we'll do here for our second parameter is we're actually going to call this Django static variable. So instead of serving a dynamic content, which would be like a function found within one of our views, such as blogviews.archive, we want to serve static content, so Django static, and then the function that we want to use within that is the serve function. And all this is doing is it's just telling us that when we go to this URL, we want to serve static content within the root, which will be this content in the images folder. I think I probably over-explained that. So I hope that you understand by now. And then, cool, the next parameter that we pass in is actually a dictionary. So as we discussed earlier, a dictionary is basically just an array. So instead of just passing in the name variable, which is equal to category, we're going to pass in an entire dictionary. So we could pass a dictionary into the library, but it would really just get into this function, but it would really just get complicated. So instead of just passing a variable, we're passing an array or a dictionary. And then there is a key and a value field that we need to pass into this specific function, the Django static serve function. And that is, the key is document root. So we're now setting documents underscore root of our static serve function, and then the value of that, because it's separated by a colon, and now we can call our base directory, which we're wanting to do. So we can now go to settings, so we can type out settings, and we can call the variable that we've used before called base directory. So we can say settings dot base dir, and then we can just append the word images to that. So we can just say plus, and just make sure it's preceded by a forward slash, and then we can just say images. Lovely. So now what we're doing with this line of code here, if you don't understand it, you can probably just copy it and use it for your own purposes, but just for the sake of explanations, which I probably over-explained again, is we calling our regular expressions forward slash images forward slash the path of the image. That's great. Then we're calling this function from the Django static view, which is just telling that Django that we don't want to try and process anything dynamic. We literally just want to serve the content that's found at this particular root. And then the root that we're passing in, the document root, is equal to the root, the absolute path all the way to our images folder. And we're getting this settings.base directory from the settings file, which we saw here is this long line over here, which is basically just getting the absolute path. Great, cool. So now we can actually save that. And then what I want to do in our HTML file to demo this is just go to our single.html, and what's really cool now is that our post will have an image attached to it. So that's really nice. So we can just go image, and then we can say the source of our image is going to be our post.image, and we're getting that from our model post.image here. Great. So now we can save that. It's always good to have an alt tag on your images. So I'm just going to put the post's title in as the alt tag. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but if we save this and we try and refresh on our front end, the chances are that this is going to break. And this is because Django is looking for an image, but because an image is not a required field, it may not show up, and Django will probably throw an error. So what I want to do is I want to put a conditional statement in here, the way that we've always done logical statements inside of our templates, and say if, and then I want to say post.image. So if there is a post image, then we want to run that code, and then we want to end our if at the end of that. So end if. Cool. That's looking great. So now let's just go back to our console, make sure we have no errors. Setting object has no attribute bas_dir. Oh, and that is because it is not a bas, it is a base with an e at the end. Let's just make sure that's correct. Base_dir. Great. And let's refresh this thing. Cool, and we're no longer getting any issues here, so that's great. Let's refresh the front end of our sites. Let's go back to front end, and we saved it to our lorem ipsum. And it looks like it's trying to find the image, but it's not finding anything. Let's open the image in the new tab and see what happens. Post to images. Okay, so what it's doing here is it's actually trying to append this image root to the to our post. So obviously it can't find anything at post /2 /images. So what we need to do is we actually need to go back to our view, and we now need to edit this over here. Awesome. And what this is doing is it's because we've just put this URL straight into here. It's used the entire URL path. So a quick HTML trick to get around this is just to put the / in our actual source, and that'll just take us to the root in terms of our URL routing. So if we save that, so we just put a little / in here, and we go back here, and we refresh our blog page, and it's still not giving us anything. Great, you can now see it's removed the post to images. And I have just realized what our problem is over here, is that our regular expression is not correct. This is because this is looking for any word that has got valid characters in it. This is not a word with a valid character. This is a word with a dot in it. So firstly, a dot is not a valid string character. And then yeah, the dot JPEG after it. And then there's no / at the end of that. So it's not matching this regular expression at all. So we'll need to alter our regular expression in our urls.py file. And I think the best way to do this is going to be to remove this completely. And to just say, again, we still want to keep it a group, so we want to keep that. And then I just want to say dot JPEG. And what this will do is this will allow this images to match anything .jpg. Cool, so let's now refresh our site. I think we may need to put the / back at the end. Let's just see. Let's just keep it safe and make this a star. So .star. Oh, and awesome. We now have our really massively out of proportion image. So this is really cool. We can now create blog posts with images. The one last thing that I want to do quickly is to just add a width here. Width, oopsie, width is equal to, let's say, 250 pixels, and let's refresh this. And there we go. This is really nice. And if we go back home again and we go to one that doesn't have, for some reason, it's pulling in, I think our home.html may also have that. Yes, you'll see. Here's one that doesn't have an image and it doesn't throw in any errors. So let's just go back to our hello world. I think this was probably a mistake of mine from earlier. Oh, there we go. And you see it does currently have clouds.jpg attached to it. Um, awesome, guys. So this is basically a blog site that's working not the greatest way that it can, and I know that the content has been a bit sketchy here, but all in all, it's pretty much giving us everything that we need from a blog post. So there's always other things that you can add to this, such as comments, or maybe a few more categories, maybe fix up your menu system a little bit, add some social media icons, add a bit more of a theme to your site. At the moment it's just the default Bootstrap theme, but there are a lot of really cool things that you can do to make this blog really awesome. Now, obviously it is a lot easier to set this up using WordPress. So there's no dispute there. Out of the box, WordPress is really great for just installing something and just getting it to run. And that is the whole philosophy of WordPress, where it can run on any server and it's really super quick to set up. Now, the amazing part about Django is that although WordPress is really quick to set up, we did everything over here ourselves, and we have complete control over everything that goes on here. Not only that, but this is a lot more robust than what WordPress has out of the box in terms of database semantics, in terms of how our models are created, our use of object-oriented programming, and this is really where you start um, diving into the real hard grinding development or web developer development industry stuff. And this is where the crux of a web development happens with really robust applications. Yeah, so in the next section, we're just going to be covering a couple of cool aspects of Django, but in terms of our blog section, we are pretty much done.